Why did the 101 Dalmatians, 1991, theatrical reissue trailer have a remade version of the theme from Sleuth, 1972, in it? A Medium article written and published by Brian Mullins The Fox. It's clear as day that it was performed by the same orchestra, by the same conductor, but this instrumental snippet kept lingering on in my head for years and I don't know why. It was written in the key of C minor, its overall theme was dark, and perfectly resembles the color black. Yes, this is the same snippet that you hear in the VHS promo for the Aristocats in the opening to The Lion King 1995 VHS. This is also the same snippet that you hear in the VHS promo for 101 Dalmatians, 1992 VHS release, and even in a TV commercial for its 1992 VHS release to the general public. But this music is not playing for no reason. There's a reason why and a meaning to it, that I will have to dig deep into. Sleuth, 1972, is basically a movie about an author of detective novels and a game aficionado, getting tangled up in an affair with a salon owner. Then both characters, Andrew Wyke and Milo Tyndall, commenced in a game of one-upmanship, where at the end, Milo dies and leaves Andrew standing there and crying loudly amongst the crowd of very creepy toys laughing at him, making him look like the actual bad guy for taking the fact that someone else had an affair with his wife, way too far. It seemed that he had killed the guy because Milo the douchebag decided to falsely accuse Andrew of strangling his wife and he had perfect justification to do so. But the fact is, he didn't and all of it was never justified. Then Milo announced that he was going to play another game of one-upmanship, this time involving an actual murder. Andrew pulled a gun on Milo and revealed that the theft he committed was all a sham and part of the game of one-upmanship. Andrew became the reason why no one should ever play these games while an affair is going on, especially if he's the victim of what he writes in books, the murderer that only took one seemingly good reason out of the bunch and turned it into a horrific one, and most of all, he made himself a murderer for nothing, in vain. Why would all of that be relevant as a theme for Disney to use to promote movies that include two thugs kidnapping 101 Dalmatians or Duchess kittens being kidnapped by a greedy butler out to steal her fortune? What does 101 Dalmatians, Sleuth, and the Aristocats have in common, plot-wise? Because all of them involve an affair, no matter what kind. The butler or Edgar Balthazar got this treatment after the affair of kidnapping kittens had on him. Thomas and his alley cat friends intervene and engage Edgar in a brutal battle which culminates in Edgar ending up being hit on the head with a falling bale of hay, tied down with Frou-Frou's horse collar, gagged with a bucket over his head, and knocked and locked in the trunk himself and getting sent to Timbuktu. Cruella de Vil and her two hapless henchmen end up in a car chase that ended up wrecking her car, leaving her to cry and the two others sit there and wait until the police capture them. Then all the Dalmatians were eventually recovered and found to be alive and well, after cleaning them off with a duster of course. What is the only thing that sets 101 Dalmatians, Sleuth, and the Aristocats apart? None of the villains or victims got murdered. The one and only thing all these villains just like Andrew Wyke feared, is getting caught without taking a life. Andrew Wyke wasn't so lucky. After all, Edgar Balthazar, Cruella de Vil and her henchmen, Jasper and Horace, were arrested and justice was served to them. Given that 101 Dalmatians was released as the first animated Disney classic to come out in the 60s, due to the fact that 1961 technically began the said decade. Given that the Aristocats was released as the last animated Disney classic to come out in the 60s, due to the fact that 1970 technically ended the said decade. These two movies technically came out in the same decade, the 1960s, 1961 to 1970. Sleuth came out on December 10, 1972. These promos and trailers using a reorchestrated theme from Sleuth, 1972, sounds like poetic irony to me. Andrew Wyke seems to be the only one that has not yet been tried and sent to prison for murdering Milo Tyndall, while the police were yet to arrest and incarcerate him. To sum it all up shortly, here's the conclusion. 1. They used the theme from Sleuth, 1972, because it had only one thing in common with the Aristocats, 1970, and 101 Dalmatians, 1961. They all involved an affair going on. 2. What sets the Aristocats, 1970, and 101 Dalmatians, 1961, apart from Sleuth, 1972, was that none of the villains or victims of their haphazard kidnapping ended up being murdered. 3. And finally, is that all of this is a perfect example of poetic irony or poetic justice, even if it meant taking a life rather than saving one.